This is how I get 20 hours of work done in 4 hours. As someone who used to work a regular 8 to 6 tech consulting job, I really had to learn how to be more efficient with my time, not just to get my job done faster, but to also make a lot of progress in my side projects and hobbies. So in this video, I want to share with you what worked for me, which includes not only apps that help me save time, but also tools that help me reduce distractions. Now, I find it pretty easy to do 4 hours of deep work pretty easily on any given day, whereas a few years ago, that was pretty difficult for me. So at the end of the video, I'll also share with you my routine, which has evolved to now doing more than that. Also, if you want to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button and like button, which helps the YouTube algorithm. The other day I looked and 75.2% of people that watch my videos are not subscribed. And so if you like my videos, consider subscribing. It helps me make better videos more often. The first thing that you need to do is to have a clear plan of what you want to accomplish for that day. For me, the way that I do this is that I write down the tasks I want to finish in my pocket notebook. And you can either do this the day before or the start of the day. But it's very important that you write down specifically what you want to do, because it forces you to think about what are the highest leverage tasks that you can do. And you don't waste your time working, doing things that aren't that meaningful. If you work without a plan, then what tends to happen is that you're going to start working on the wrong things. I used to spend maybe only 5 minutes thinking about what I'm going to do for the day, but now I've come to appreciate actually spending longer and creating a plan, because this is basically what I'm going to work on for the next 4 hours. Once you have a plan, the next thing you need to do is time blocking. I'll probably make a whole video about this concept sometime in the future, but one thing that you'll learn with managing your time is that you cannot really control your time. You can only control your attention. And so what time blocking is that you set a period of time that you're going to work on one specific thing. Generally for me, working 50 minutes or 90-minute blocks are the most efficient, and then taking a small break. It kind of depends on what you're doing. Like when I'm coding, it's really easy to work for 4 or 5 hours without any breaks. But for other things like editing, I'll have to take some breaks just because my eyes get really tired. For time blocking, I've religiously used this timer for nearly 5 years now, and I've mentioned this a lot in some of my other videos. But it has a really neat design where you can see how much time is left without being distracted by a countdown. The one I have, I've literally been using for 5 years without any issues. And they actually updated this model to have a little spot where you can put a whiteboard of what you're working on, which I think also helps. For me, I usually time block the most intensive tasks in the morning, like coding or writing. You'll probably find that as the day goes on, it becomes harder for you to focus really intensely like you can in the morning. And the reason is because first in the morning, you're refreshed, you're not eating, so you're not wasting cognitive power digesting. You're also just less tired. So if you time block, you should probably time block hard tasks in the morning and then easier tasks at night or in the afternoon. If you can't control your schedule, like I had this experience when I was still working at my job, I would recommend just waking up way earlier, which is what I did. The third tip is to only use social media on a schedule. So you probably have the feeling sometimes that you don't have enough hours in a day to actually get to all the things that you want. If you block your social media on your phone and computer on a schedule like I have, you'll find that you actually have quite a lot of time in a day to make a lot of progress in anything that you want. The average screen time today is 7 hours. If the average person just completely stops scrolling on their phone, they have an extra 7 hours to do anything that they want. One thing you realize with using social media on a schedule is that there's really no difference between using it for 30 minutes a day versus 7 hours a day. You don't miss out on anything. So it's just totally wasted time that you can instantly save. I've made whole videos on how to set this up on your computer or phone that you can check out. And personally, I've been doing this for 5 years and it's been super sustainable. I even wrote the script that automatically blocks distracting apps and starts a timer, which I'll link how to do that on my website. The next thing is to block out internal distractions. Okay, so what are internal distractions? They're basically thoughts and ideas that pop out to you when you're trying to do something else. For example, you sit down to code and then you remember you need to do your dishes, so you go do your dishes. Or you're researching how to do something, but suddenly you're on a YouTube binge. So what happens here is that you've succumbed to internal distractions. So when you're actually working, you're going to have these different ideas. You're going to have these things that you want to look up. And the hard part of working for a long period of time is to not get pulled into that. So what you actually want to do in this case is to write down those distractions and to look them up later. So you can write them down in your pocket notebook or somewhere else and just set it aside and do it later. I learned this from the book Indistractable. So the author, he recommends when you're working to write down what your distractions are so you can understand where those impulses come from. You can watch the interview that I did with him, which has been super helpful for me personally, or you can also watch the dedicated video that I made about the book. Typically for me, the type of distractions I get when I'm working are just things I want to look up or rabbit holes I want to go down that are related to work, but I try to set it aside until I have actually finished the task that I started. All right, now I'm going to share with you the extremely useful tools that I found for focus during the day. This is pretty regularly. If you're working from home or you work by yourself, it's sort of hard to keep yourself accountable to, one, show up and do work, and to also stay focused for the entire period of time. So how this app works is that you hop on and you immediately get paired with somebody that's trying to do work, and you keep each other accountable. So you say what you're going to do, they say what they're going to do, and you work for 50 minutes or 90 minutes, and then the call ends. It sounds pretty dumb, but it actually works very well. And I found about this platform from this entrepreneur called Alex Lieberman, who says that this is the only thing that worked for him, and he sold his company for nearly $100 million. The second app is beeminder. If you find it difficult to be disciplined, what this app does is that it charges you a penalty if you don't finish a task. So this is definitely more hardcore because the penalty actually increases every time you fail. So it goes from $5, then $10, and all the way up to $270. But they have a built-in integration with focusmate. So you can actually use beeminder to charge you a penalty if you don't do a focusmate session or a number of focusmate sessions a day. The third app is called Cold Turkey Micromanager. So this app is made by the developer who made Cold Turkey, which is the app I use to block out social media on my computer. But what this app does is that it allows you to set Pomodoro sessions where you only allow certain apps. So this is really useful if you're working in Notion or you're coding or you're editing and you don't want to be distracted. You can just whitelist that app only and you won't be able to open up any other apps, and so you actually cannot be distracted. The same developer also has another app called Cold Turkey Writer. So if you do any sort of writing, it basically blocks your entire computer except for a text editor, and it only unlocks your computer after you hit a certain amount of words or you write for a certain amount of time. This next one is not an app, but it's built into your computer. So on Mac, you can set up a keyboard shortcut, which is to hit the power button 3 times to enable grayscale. So this is useful because you can use a grayscale computer as a reminder to stay focused on what you're doing. Obviously, this will not work if you do any sort of design work or you code because it's hard to read the syntax, but it's useful to use it as a cue to not get pulled into watching videos, responding to messages, or checking social media. The last tool that I would recommend is a kitchen lockbox. What this is basically a box with a timer on it that you can set, and you cannot open it until the timer is done. You can put your phone in here and you won't be able to check your phone until you're done for the day. Or you can put anything else that you might be distracted with in this box and you won't be able to use it until the time's up. Putting your phone or anything that's distracting in somewhere that is hard to reach is sort of freeing in a way because your brain just stops thinking about it entirely. What's useful with a box like this is that it's a reminder to stay focused on the thing that you said you were going to do. There's literally a countdown that shows you how much time you have left. Alternatively, you can also use an app like Opal or Burnout Buddy to block all the distracting apps on your phone. I made a video about that they can check out. Now I'm going to share with you my daily routine that you can just follow if you want something structured. So typically I wake up before 6 a.m. and then I do 4 to 6 hours of deep work until noon. For me, I found that this time is best for any sort of cognitively intensive work like coding, editing, or writing. And it's, in my experience, easier to get into flow earlier in the morning. Then after that, I'll do an hour break to do basically my morning routine to actually exercise and anything else. And then I'll work for another 2 hours. So usually these 2 hours, I do lighter work. Like if I have a video to film, I'll film it like I'm filming right now. By this time, I'm usually pretty hungry, but I try not to eat before 3 p.m. because if I eat, it becomes way harder to focus because your body just spends time digesting. So at 3 or so, I'll eat. And it usually takes me about 30 minutes, and I'll go back into work until around 6 p.m. So this is when I do more chill work, like hopping on calls, admin, or planning, even sometimes research. And then after that, I'll usually stop doing work stuff, and then I'll go eat dinner, and then go to bed at around 9 to 10 p.m., which I found to be pretty sustainable to waking up at 5:30 or 6. A lot of times I also spend these last few hours learning, like either reading or watching different YouTube videos and taking notes on that. So if you count those in, then sometimes it's like more than 12 hours. The last thing I'll say is that if you're just starting out, 4 hours of deep work is enough to really move the needle and make a lot of progress. You don't need to actually work 10 to 12 hours to make a lot of progress in your goals. But if you can put in 10, 12 hours, you're going to make so much more progress than you would. I think this is a lot less obvious with things like entrepreneurship or your career, which may take even longer for there to be a payoff. But you don't actually get 20% better results if you put in 20% more hours. You get exponentially better results. I will say that the most important habit that made this all come together is consistently waking up before 6. If you've found it difficult to wake up before 6 in the past, I made a whole video of how I was able to go from a night owl to a morning person relatively easily. So you can check that out. I'll see you over there. Let's get it.